listeners to yet another episode of 100% Sale of Journalism Ethics here with me, Kaushal Bhatia.
And Sailesh.
For all the first time listeners, here's how it'll go. Shailesh and myself have selected a few stories from certain beats that have taken place or developed in the past week and give our 2 cents on the same. In the first minute, we have to narrate the story in as much detail as possible, and the following few minutes is open for group discussion. Well, I mean, I have not written a introduction this time, so I don't think I can wing it. Shailesh, why don't you give us the introduction this time?
Uh, for all our viewers, and that includes Ramesh as well. Uh,
Yes.
Please listen to this because we are paying you. Although we may be paying you in installments, but we will make sure that we pay you each and every one of it. So please listen to
Definitely.
this.
I mean, I'm so glad that they did not basically investigate us while they were doing the whole TRP thing because we would have definitely been caught. I mean, look at the numbers. Bark is putting us on top. The advertisers are going crazy. Tanishq
uh,
was like, we want to advertise on your podcast. We want to advertise on your podcast. But then we both decided that it's just too sensitive a topic and we don't want to get banned. So yeah.
no, and
So
they also realize the only reason we are number one is because we created the category for itself. That's why we
exactly. Our own category. And
are.
with that being said, let's move on to the first beat that is national news, which will be taken up by me, yours truly.
Yes.
And this story is from India Today. The byline is credited to Shiv Arur,
Yeah.
and here's the headline. Even Ladakh not spared, construction scams force Indian Army to rope in CBI. Exasperated by a series of alleged scams involving construction projects led by the Military Engineer Services, including a massive fake bill racket uncovered in Ladakh during the current standoff, the Indian Army has decided to rope in the Central Bureau of Investigation to investigate and fix responsibility. To kick
Hmm.
things off, the Army has handed over a case involving the infamous Army Married Accommodation Project in Meerut, Uttar Pradesh to the CBI and is making a list of several other MES handled constructions and activities that it wants the central agency to probe as part of a deep dive into the perceived construction rot. The Meerut project involves faulty construction, which has led to a situation where buildings have to be demolished. Other cases that will likely be handed over to the CBI include a fake bill reported during departmental inquiries into MES construction projects in Leh, Bangalore,
Hmm.
Guwahati, and Ahmednagar. The Army's decision to attempt an aggressive crackdown on deep-rooted incompetence and corruption in construction activity
Hmm.
was triggered by a September letter written by Chief of Defence Staff General Bipin Rawat to the three armed forces chiefs. So basically, the report already suggests and tells you everything you need to know is that it is not only the civil companies and agencies that have corruption in it, but the army itself, no matter how professional and disciplined they are also quite corrupt, as
Hmm.
we've also known by many of their acquisitions and all, which have been marred with a lot of controversy, be it the Bofors or the Augusta Westland and the most recently Rafale fighter jets acquisition. And the construction apparently also seems to be with the same kind of controversy that seems to be surrounding it. Now, before I begin
Yeah.
by putting my point forward, I want to bring you in really quickly, but let me just set the scene up for you of what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
First of all, you've already been part of the NCC during your graduation
Yeah.
for 3 years, and you've had a good amount of experiences by attending a lot of camps and all, which gives you a good insight in how the army structure works. As in, you get an
Yeah.
idea. Obviously, it's not as intense as it would be if you'd be, enrolling and you'd be enlisted and whatnot. But you do get an idea of how you don't break the ranks, you don't snitch. They are professionals, they
Correct.
are disciplined, and at the same time, there's a lot of nepotism that exists even in the army.
Hmm.
So that being said, I'm pretty sure that a lot of people, probably juniors, are aware of who are involved in these scams. But because they have this rule of not to break rank, I
Yeah.
think no one will, everyone will hesitate to come forward because it's like it's frowned upon if you snitch or something in the army or the NCC and the like. Wouldn't you agree, Kailash?
Uh, Wait, just to be clear, the report is alleging that uh, the Indian Army was directly involved in the construction.
Yes, the military engineer services.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
normally, uh, like you said, there is a certain chain of command, and nobody breaks it. But nepotism exists in every stream of life. There is no doubt in it, but there are certain things which they don't cross. For example, getting into the army, there is no nepotism in it, but to a certain extent, after you get into the services, there may be some nepotism that happens. But at the same time, there has never been a direct allegations of the army personnel being involved in corrupt practices as such. Take for example, what have been the allegations? Mostly uh, the kind of, rather, the times when they've been corrupt is when they've traded secrets about the forces to the enemy nation or some other foreign agency. And there are many examples. Some of them have been honey trapped and all those things. But
Right, but let
when
me
it
let me narrow it down for you so I can pinpoint on what I'm actually talking about. One of the
Yeah,
factors that we will focus on is the fact that you don't break ranks, and that is a very strict thing that everyone follows. Right? You have to
correct.
report to your superiors or whatever it
Mm.
is. You have to push some paper or you have to give make some application. But other than that, you cannot go beyond that. You cannot go above your superior. And obviously, if you go to someone who's at the same rank, it's not going to help you much. Uh,
Yeah.
Now, the
So,
particular story talks about military
hmm,
engineer services, which is a part of the Indian Army, and they basically take up a lot of construction work in various parts of the country. And one of the things that you might remember is there was a bridge that had collapsed in Mumbai of one of the stations in South Bombay, and
hmm,
that had to be repaired by the MES had taken up that project to repair it because of the shoddy work that had taken place by the other civil agencies. So this
yeah.
particular scam is talking about fake bills. It's talking about shoddy construction. They don't always do that, but this is basically trying to find accountability of who's responsible, and then probably the army court will give the sentence of whoever is found guilty, I guess.
Yeah, but that's what I was getting to. Basically, you see a lot of examples happening, but never, usually, I've never heard of army unit being directly being involved in the corruption. Like there may be Bofors, there may be Rafale, but that's more like a civilian thing, nothing to do with the army. The buying and purchasing
Hmm.
decision, the spending and all is done by the civilian. What the army attests is the quality of the weapon you're buying. So so in that sense, this is something I'm hearing for the first time, where where a unit of the army is being accused of running a corruption racket. And moreover, it's related to fake bills, which means there's the extent of the corruption is quite deep. And now, like you
Hmm.
said, other, like, there's always this understanding that no matter what happens, the army is usually an honest unit of the country, and there is some blind faith there is of the people on them. And at the same time, uh, now that this is one of the allegations that come up, and hopefully no more will come, and no more exist. But then one thing is there is a lot of rigidity in the army. For example, even if I'll from a personal experience, one of the people who serves in the army told me that this is just a small example. So during breakfast, lunch, evening snacks, and dinner. So the soldiers are served in the mess. So during the breakfast, a lot of soldiers stopped eating the egg in their meal, and they would eat the other
Hmm.
things. But then the problem was. the egg was already on the menu. It was already tendered. It was already basically said that so many thousand eggs will be prepared for the soldiers' meal. But then the problem
Hmm.
was nobody wanted to eat the eggs. I don't know. This is unusual, but apparently that was the situation. So I may be mixing up the item, but it was something to do with egg only. So people didn't want to eat it. So then what was happening is they were cooking those thousands of eggs for the soldiers in during the breakfast, but not many were eating, so they were getting thrown out. And the reason this couldn't be rectified is because that would involve a lot of paperwork to get it rectified. So what the person who was in charge of purchasing these items, he said let it be. Next time when the tender comes, or maybe next time when we are making a change, we won't include this. But for now, thousands of eggs are being thrown out because nobody was eating them. So this was just a small example. Similarly, that person only told me when he was in charge
Hmm.
of purchases in the same mess, and there was a lot of things that would come on a daily basis, and there were a lot of bills. So one of the vendors told him, "Sir, I will give you so much money per month. Just make sure my bills are cleared directly. Don't go to bother with the
Oh.
details." So he said okay. So he would get a certain amount, which was basically a bribe. He would clear off everything. Papers would be cleared, the bills would be cleared, and that the vendor was anyways making a lot of money with the quantity, so he didn't mind paying certain amount. So these are just very personal examples that I've got from a person who's serving in the army. But
Hmm.
I don't know how many instances like this exist, and that's the thing about the army. It's very rigid in certain senses. Simple, uh, the fact that the amount of weapons we need and the amount of purchases we make and the amount
Hmm.
of time it takes, that only gives you an idea how rigid the army is, or not only
Correct.
army for that matter, the armed forces or the military of the country. That includes the navy, air force.
Yeah, yeah.
So
No, I mean that's a good point, and it's been mentioned also about the ammunitions and the things that they need to purchase for the army to update the weaponry or whatever else that is required. There's a lot of, I guess, red tape kind of, but the army red tape, not the bureaucratic red tape,
hmm,
which
hmm,
requires it. So, like you said, it is quite rigid, but at the same time, the uh, credibility of the army is quite good. Like people respect the army, they trust the army,
yeah,
and there might be these instances. But I think largely, even this particular case that the CDR General Rawat is bringing in the CBI to find the first people who are responsible is, I think, a good news. It's a good step forward, and
correct.
that is what differentiates the professional army people to other rogue armies, which ultimately take coups and take over the
Hmm,
state, and how they kind of get involved in the politics. So I feel this is good news. At
correct.
the same time, it's bad news.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, I guess on that note,
Hmm,
we can move on to the next beat,
yes.
which is national news politics, which
Yeah.
will be taken up by you. Shailesh, whenever you're ready.
Okay. So this news had appeared on the Indian Express. It's titled "Third Front May Prove Kingmaker with 10% Votes." It's in relation to the Bihar Assembly polls, and it was
Hmm.
written by Santosh Singh and Wali Ahmed. And what they write about in this particular piece is they're talking about the third front. Now we have the BJP led NDA, we have the Mahagathbandhan that constitutes Congress and RJD and smaller other parties. And
CPI also,
this
I think.
thing particularly talks about, yeah, CPI. So this thing particularly talks about Democratic Secular Front that is made up of smaller parties like the uh, R- RLSP, Rashtriya Lok Samanta Party,
Hmm.
AIMIM, Oasis Party, BAC,
Correct.
BSP, Mayawati's
Mayawati.
party, Suhel Bharatiya Samaj Party. I think this one is formed by a leader from UP. Former
Hmm.
RJD MPs Devendra Yadav's Samajwadi Janta Dal Democratic, and Jana Tantrik Party Socialist of Uttar Pradesh. And what it talks about is uh, these parties are small, their vote shares are small, but because they've come together, they constitute around 10% of the votes. And the highest is the Upendra Kushwaha led RLSP that had
RLSP.
uh,
No, I was saying RLSP. Sorry, I just yeah.
yeah, RLSP that had around 3.6% of the votes in the 2015 assembly election, and BSP had around just over 2% of the votes. So what they are saying is uh, these people in the first phase, when 72 seats had gone to polls, these people had contested 62 of them. And what's happening is these people may not have a pan Bihar present, but there are certain pocket boroughs where they will take away a lot of votes. And now some of these people are, uh, you could say, traditionally seen non-NDA. Some are seen NDA parties. So what will happen is they will either they may act as vote cutters for certain of these parties like Congress, RJD, BJP, JDU, and all those things. So, and he also talks about there's a potential that they may get a small chunk of seats, and who knows, either they'll play a spoil sport for some other parties or get a very small share of seats, and in case there is a hung assembly, then they'll play the role of a kingmaker. So
Hmm.
uh,
Yeah, actually, it's
given
very interesting.
ah,
It's
yeah,
very interesting, the things that I'm reading about the Bihar election. Obviously, Chirag
yeah,
Paswan, who is claiming to be very close to Modi ji, and he
yeah,
basically worships Modi ji. He's like the Hanuman, and in his heart is
yeah,
Modi ji. And the various things, the narrative that he's built up with how whether Nitish Kumar likes it or not, and how NDA is just trying, I mean, BJP is just trying to appease Nitish Kumar, but in reality, there's something else. And it is so
hmm,
convincing, to be honest, that it seems like this election can go anywhere. I feel, I don't know, maybe I might be wrong, and we don't have the pulse of the people there, so we don't know the
hmm,
reality. But as a person who's, consuming all the media and the newspaper stuff and the narratives that are being put out, it seems like there is a good chance of anything happening this election. Everyone is in Bihar. Everyone is trying to fight. A lot of people are going to cut each other's votes,
hmm,
and it just seems very. I just know one thing for sure, and this is what I don't know. I have a feeling about this, and I still again could be wrong, but I feel that BJP will be in power for sure. But the only
yeah,
thing is who's going to be their partner. That is the one thing in question. Will they have like two, three kind of, like you said, like RLSP and BSP and all those? Because even Mayawati has said that they wouldn't mind voting for BJP to beat SC, but obviously that's in MP. But if she said that
UP,
about
UP,
MP in UP, sorry, in UP, if
Rajya
she said
Sabha.
that about UP, then I'm pretty sure that she wouldn't mind joining hands in Bihar if she gets a chance, and if her candidates get some portfolios or some seats of sorts. I feel so. It's like a very confusing thing. I can't make heads or tails of what's going to happen, but it seems like an interesting outcome, whatever it may be.
That's true. Uh, it seems like the NDA may keep the power because no matter what other parties do, they still work together well, and they can corner the majority on their own, the BJP and the JDU together. And at the same time, if LJP ends up winning a few more seats than it previously did, then let's say more than 10, 15, 20, something like that, that's also a good number for them for now. So they'll
Hmm.
definitely join hands together because there's no way that because for LJP it's more of survival, because the previous election they hardly had a few MLAs elected, and
Correct.
they've been consistently declining since 2005, and they don't have the power in the Lok Sabha like they used to. Like they can't stand on their own legs of sorts. So even if they do end up spoiling the game for Nitish Kumar, it I feel the government at the end will be a NDA government. But
Yeah.
like you say, you can't write anyone off until you know for sure the results are out. Till then, everybody is a winner and everybody is a loser.
Yeah, but I think this is what I like about the media and the stories that are coming up, because it's not like there's one. I mean, obviously there might be some really dedicated media channels and newspapers that'll say BJP will win for sure, or this person will win for sure. But everyone is, unanimously saying that anything can happen. This state is only like that, and so many parties are at play. So let's see what happens. But NDA is definitely going to come into power, I feel.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So I think on that note, we'll move on to the next beat.
Right. Okay. So on that note, we'll move on to the next beat, which is business, and that will be taken up by me.
Yeah.
This story is from the Daily Mail, UK, and the byline is credited to Ryan Morrison.
Okay.
The headline Here's the headline: Futuristic flying air car that can transform from a road vehicle into a plane in under 3 minutes takes to the skies for the first time. I saw this. I saw this video. Okay, it's
Okay.
there in this article. This
Hmm.
car actually takes off. It's flying.
Okay.
It's a proper car. It basically takes, the wings come out like suicide doors. You know how they are, and it takes off. And let me give you some information about it. It's a company called Klein Vision,
Hmm.
which is started by Professor Klein, and he basically, this is the fifth prototype, and he's been working on this particular car for a long time. It's a flying sports car that can go from road vehicle to aircraft in just 3 minutes. Has
Okay.
flown 1,500 feet in the air over Slovakia as a
Hmm.
part of the test flight, its developers say. And the footage is there. It will be there
Okay.
with this particular link that we will be putting down below. They are saying it would be great for leisure and self-driving journeys or as a commercial taxi service. It's
Okay.
come true. This is really crazy for me to even like. It's, I'm seriously telling you, I never thought that I'll be able to see something like that. I thought it would be like, only you would see this in SFX and all in movies and stuff. And I know there have been certain tests that have been taken there in the past, but this seems so real. It's not that big. It seems like a
True.
Toyota Camry or something. It's maybe like a Innova, or you can say a Fortuner. It will be as big because of the things that need the propellers and all at the back
Hmm.
and the wings that come up. And apparently at 200 kilometers per hour in a 300-meter run up, this car can take flight. Imagine,
Hmm.
imagine me driving my car over the Western Express Highway in Mumbai and just taking off, bypassing all the traffic and then landing in Sivim or landing in the Giri Highway in Goa. Then I'll buy
Any
a couple of beers with the excise duties that I have to pay in the Union Territory of Goa. Fly back to Mumbai.
but
Oh
any
God,
idea what the
obviously,
range is
yeah.
of this car?
Uh, well, I think there are some specifications that are given. Like they said, it's a two-seat model tested in Slovakia. It weighs
Hmm.
about 2,425 pounds and can carry an additional load of 440 pounds per flight. It's powered
Okay.
by a BMW 1.6 liter engine,
Hmm.
and I mean, it's quite impressive. Obviously, I won't understand the science of all of this that has been written here, but
Okay.
it's a marvel, and it's going. If it's there right now, if it's created, I don't know if it will take much. Maybe 5 years down the line, it will be there,
Hmm.
and I'm pretty sure someone in India, many people in India, will be able to buy it.
Okay.
So because we've got rich people, and you probably in Mumbai will definitely have one of them, I feel, or maybe
Hmm.
one of those
Correct.
farmers who are in Haryana and Punjab, because they are pretty rich and they have those fleet of cars. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Understood.
Oh man,
Land on.
I'm really excited. I think this is going to be great. I don't know what this is going to do to the car business or the airplane business or whatever. It's going to be a disruptor for sure. And I want to fly this man.
I can
Uh,
hear the excitement. But then,
Yeah.
how do you think it's fun if it's a few people owning it, but then imagine a lot of people owning it,
I mean, it's
then we
impossible a
would
lot
have.
of people owning it because it will be shit expensive, first of all.
That's
But
true.
I mean, I don't know, man. I want to share this with the people. Y'all can comment of what y'all think about this. We'd love to
True.
know. And you know what? I had selected this. I just saw this like yesterday, but before this, the story I selected for business was divestment in Air India, which is my second favorite topic. So
Hmm.
you know this one because it's a flying car. God damn it.
True. True.
Uh, yeah. That's all I've got to say. Sailesh, please, you can share whatever you feel about this particular beautiful thing.
No, I saw the video and I think it's amazing. And like they said, it's supposed to be leisure, and I think that's the main part of it. Imagine you go to a scenic place and you want to enjoy it more. You basically get into the car and fly around it and enjoy the view more, you know. So I think in
You're
that
saying it
sense,
so normally. How are you saying it so normally? I don't understand. Why are you not as excited as I am? It's a flying car,
I am. I'm just, hoping to make enough money to buy it later on.
or we can steal it.
True.
Um, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm not letting you say anything about this at all. Anything else you would
Yeah.
like to add?
No, no.
Okay, on that note, I feel we should move on to the next topic before I gush over it anymore. And that is going to be international,
Hmm.
and that'll be taken up by you, Sailesh, anytime you're ready.
Okay, so this story is specifically not international, but it does involve a foreign country. So the title is India conveys serious concern to Saudi over gross misinterpretation of its external boundaries. So, for those who may not have followed the story, it basically what happened is Saudi Arabia about 2 3 days ago printed a 20 real note. They introduced it into circulation to mark Saudi Arabia's presidency of the G20 grouping. But the thing is, in the front, the photo is of the king, and on the back of the note, they have the world map. And the controversial part over there is the former state of Jammu and Kashmir and current Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh Union Territory is
Hmm.
shown as a separate entity from India and Pakistan. So uh, I don't know what stand they were trying to take, but basically what they've done is they've not shown POK, and neither have they shown the complete state as being part of India. They've shown it as an independent country. And what India did was yesterday they conveyed, like I mentioned, they conveyed to Saudi Arabia of the gross misinterpretation in their words. So I was just surprised that they would take such a stand on this and
Hmm.
directly issue a map and say, okay, fine, na tera na mera, let's keep it
Yeah,
separate.
yeah.
And
But I
I don't know.
remember the run up to this. I'm sorry. Huh, continue.
Yeah. So, anyways, like you continue.
No, I was saying that I read this bit of news and the run up to this, they had talked about how they've also excluded Baltistan and the other two, which is the other area which Pakistan has occupied, but it's not considered part of Pakistan.
In Kashmir
Not,
or
I
other.
think there is Baltistan, if I'm saying it right, and one more area which they had excluded from the Pakistan map. At the same time, they
Okay.
did the same thing with India. And I feel that they are trying to be Switzerland right now. But this is quite a bad move on their end, but it's not like it's going to affect them at all. People are going to need Saudi Arabia. They can do these things. It's not like India is going to be able to take any steps except of, censure them with words, which is fair enough.
I think initially the news broke that one of the guys, I can't recall his name, but he features on ANI a lot, and he's supposedly a POK activist who's an activist in POK for rights of people in POK, and ANI keeps bringing him on. I have no clue what activism, real activism he does, but then he keeps coming on ANI and giving very very this thing. This thing, what you call, anti-Pakistan statements, and I think for that reason they keep bringing him. And he's, I think, settled in the UK, but he initially said that, as a Diwali gift, Saudi Arabia has, gone and removed POK and included it in Indian control, shown it as India's part, and this
And
and that.
yes, yes,
And
yes.
by bloody afternoon, I hear this news and I go to see the note. It's a separate thing. Like, they've not taken any stand, and I think this was done on purpose because if they show POK, then maybe India will object, because India is currently empowered under the regime. If they don't include POK, then they will anyway spoil whatever relations are left with Pakistan. I've not unfortunately I've not gone and checked what Pakistan's reaction has been, but it's a
To be honest,
big
I feel
thing.
Pakistan cannot. They are dealing with so many things right now. I
Yeah.
don't think that they what I doubt they'll be able to say anything because they've obviously distanced themselves from Saudi Arabia with the way Imran Khan had acted with the king
Hmm.
of Saudi Arabia. And to be honest, looking at it from an international relations point of view, they don't want to alienate Pakistan completely, and they cannot be on the side of India completely because it is against their what do you call that, national interest, so to speak,
Hmm.
because they are the leaders of OIC. And one of the main issues that OIC deals with is Kashmir and several such issues, which basically empower them as the leaders. So while they've obviously become closer to India, they can't do it so closely. They want to keep their options open. And maybe this could be a signal for Pakistan to fall into line. Obviously, speaking as an Indian, I find that insulting, or I'll be against that as well, because Kashmir is an inalienable part of India. But seeing from an international relations point of view, I don't think they've done anything wrong. I think they've just been very diplomatic.
Let's see now what it evolves into. So I think on this note, we'll move on to the next beat.
Yes. Okay, on that note, we'll move on to the next beat, which is sports that will be taken up by me. This
Yeah.
story is from scroll.in, and the byline is credited to Girish Sahane. Here's the
Okay.
headline: Khabib Nurmagomedov and the rise of the Caucasian. So the story, because it's a very long story, I'm just going to give you a brief of it. The story is about this UFC fighter named Khabib. He's from Dagestan,
Okay.
which is in Caucasia. It's an independent autonomous region in Russia.
Hmm.
And over the years, he has basically earned himself the title of being one of the greatest fighters in UFC, which is Ultimate Fighting Champion, in the lightweight category. And in fact, he is touted to be the
Hmm.
longest reigning UFC lightweight champion since April 2018. Not
Hmm.
only that, as of October 2020, according to his Wikipedia page, he is the most followed Russian celebrity on Instagram with more than 24 million followers. Now, this
Okay.
particular article, other than talking about UFC, the sport, it also looks at Caucasia, the various regions in that,
Okay.
specifically talking about Dagestan, Chechnya, and Ingushetia. I apologize if I'm pronouncing them wrong. And
Hmm.
how they have they are bringing out a lot of great fighters, whether it's MMA or that kind of a sport.
Hmm.
And it goes into not only the reason of that, but also Khabib, who has basically won 29 matches of his and had no losses.
Okay.
With his last match that he had recently fought, he has announced retirement because his coach and who was his father died of COVID in July,
Oh.
and he had coached him, he had groomed him, he He was a officer in the Russian army, the Soviet army, and because this area was basically, luckily Dagestan was spared from a full-scale war, but at the
Hmm.
same time, because of its neighborhood, the effects of the war around them, it had an impact on the people there. So what he basically did, Khabib's father, he had opened a gym in the area, and he was encouraging the youth instead of joining gangs and such, or getting into Islamist insurgency, to come into the gym, to develop their skills, to go into these competitions, and
Yeah.
basically, what do you call that? Focus whatever negativity they have into this sport and make something of themselves,
Hmm.
like Khabib has. This article also speaks a lot about his character and how he is, unlike the other sportsmen, uh, he's quite a simple person. He's an observant Muslim. He's a family man. He's
Hmm.
polite except when provoked, and a lot of these things. So I feel it's a very interesting particular report that it is there, and I've also seen many matches of Khabib, and he's a spectacular fighter. To be honest, he's a very spectacular fighter, and they basically talk a lot about just that. I don't know if you've watched any of UFC matches. Have you?
No, not seriously. In passing.
Okay. And have you heard of Khabib though?
No, first time I'm hearing.
Okay, maybe I'll share a clip with you later on. But one of the points at which he came into the forefront was when he had this tiff with Conor McGregor,
Hmm.
who's this Irish guy who had basically made it big in UFC. He's a very flashy guy, and he does all these antics and stuff. And Khabib is the opposite, but he's a very hardworking, good fighter, and people respect him from Cristiano Ronaldo to Zlatan Ibrahimovic, and he's also a great role model for a lot of the Muslim world who's looking for, there was this one thing, a global Muslim superstar. That's what this particular report talks about him, and
Hmm.
they've justified why that subheading is there. And I would suggest the people who are interested in UFC or MMA to look into this particular report. It's very interesting. I also learned a lot of the things about Khabib which I did not know. And yeah, that's all. I don't think I have much to add.
No, I agree with you. I mean, to be honest, I do feel a bit embarrassed that I've never heard of this person, and
Hmm.
even though he's had such a great impact on the sports, and from what I know, he's not lost a single match, right?
Yes, no.
Okay, so I mean, I don't know how he's not well known, or at least known.
So I feel this beat is something that our listeners are just, I mean, there'll be few things you'll have to add when I pick up certain sports like this, like even table tennis. Remember when we had picked up table tennis and the French league and all? We are all learning.
Hmm.
So I feel if people like us, people like you, who do not listen to sports a lot, maybe these kind of things will interest them, and it's a good piece and insight also into the area because. Oh, one more thing I'll just add, written this down from the report
Hmm.
is they've said that now a lot of Caucasians are going to come up in wrestling, and the reason is because the success of Caucasians is built on an old tradition of wrestling competitions conducted by villages separated by mountainous countryside. So I feel that is a lot of great things in this article. People get to learn
Hmm.
about the geography, about the people in that area, and
Hmm.
yeah, that's that's it.
Okay, I don't have anything else to add.
Okay. So on that note, we'll move on to the next beat, which is entertainment, and that will be taken up by you whenever you're ready.
Okay, so the story for this week is that FTII diploma film wins first prize at Cannes student competition category. So many people are aware that Cannes Film Festival in France is quite famous and looked up to, and uh, a lot of people. It's an honor for them if their movie gets to go there or they win an award there. So at this particular the 2020 edition, there was a single Indian film that was there at the festival. It's called Cat Dog, a 20-minute uh, diploma project, and it was made by the film's director is Asmita Guha Nyogi. And you know, I was surprised to know that only one film went, and it was a student film. And I think it's a proud moment.
Yeah.
FTI being a government institute, like there are certain government institutions where the academics, and no matter what kind of an institution, the nature is taken very seriously, and it churns out very good products. And in
Yeah,
a
in fact, if I may, there is even the new age cinema that is coming up right now, if you see, with a
hmm,
lot of these directors who are coming up with stuff on YouTube, with their
hmm,
short films, which are sponsored by these alcohol brands, and many things like that. I think they're coming up with great plots. They're coming up with great direction,
hmm,
with things that in the 90s and all used to be such exaggerated stuff which we got tired of with the predictable plots and with the bad acting and whatnot. And now, really, like you see Manoj Vajpayee getting, great roles in Family Man and with this new film that's coming up, which looks really interesting as well. I have full faith that the future of cinema in India is going to be great because not only are the various cinemas, the regional cinemas coming together and working together, but I just feel that we've elevated, that they've
yeah,
elevated. They are telling stories about regions. They are not only being in urban areas, they are going to the villages, they are taking the stories from that. And I am not surprised, to be honest, but I'm very proud. Like you said, it's a very great moment to know that such a thing has happened. And I'm pretty sure that in the future, many such opportunities and events will take place where
true,
young filmmakers from India uh, do a great, give us a good name.
true. So I think on that beat, we'll move on to the next category.
Yes. On that note, we'll move on to the penultimate beat of the week. That is opinion of the week that will be taken up by me.
Hmm.
This one is from the Quint, and the credit goes to Smruti Kopikar.
Okay.
Now, I don't know if it is opinion, yes. So this is opinion of the week. It is credited to Smruti Kopikar, and
Okay.
here's the headline: Uddhav's new avatar resonates with Bal Thackeray's aggression. This opinion basically talks about his Dashera speech that he had given,
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
Dashera Melawa, and a lot of the tidbits from what he had given in the speech, the way he's giving back to the BJP and several things that he's talked about. Like he's also addressed, I think, the governor and his spat about the governor asking him whether he's turned secular or not, and various other things which he addresses in this particular speech. And to be honest,
Hmm.
I don't, more than the speech, this particular opinion gives me the opportunity to speak about something that we've spoken about in private. But since it didn't come out as a report, I couldn't say it to the listener, so I will tell you about this. One
Okay.
thing, first point, media perception. Okay, a lot of the things people in power do is they create a narrative, or people who own media is they create a narrative, and sometimes we have a misconception of people or how they actually are,
Yeah.
and then we start creating a certain idea that they are going to be like that, and
Hmm.
sometimes they surprise us. And this is a case in which I was truly surprised when Uddhav Thackeray became the chief minister of Maharashtra. The way he's handled the way after pandemic hit, and the way he's handled himself, the things he's spoken. He's a very his speeches, whatever he speaks, is to the point. It doesn't go into unnecessary jargon or unnecessary just trying to take someone's case. It's to the point. I feel he's a great leader, and he's
Hmm.
also pretty smart. He's got
Hmm.
a great relation with Sharad Pawar, as we can see. They are working very well together. I think he might be mentoring him further
Hmm.
about how he should take this forward. And it is just great. I've read this article. People who do not understand Marathi, like me, I don't understand Marathi. So they have taken out a lot of uh, main points from this
Hmm.
his speech, and one of them was also he used RSS chief's words and defended his Hindutva, which was questioned by Governor Koshiari.
Koshari,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, so it's quite a bit. He's also taken up the issue of GST in this and several other things, which I will let the
Hmm.
listeners read about it. My point is, he's done a great job. I really am glad that Uddhav Thackeray is the Chief Minister of Mumbai. And media perceptions, mudslinging politics should not, if you're listening to this, do not get influenced by it. Try to, find other sources of finding out whether this leader is like that or not. In reality, Shailesh, your take on this. What do you feel?
Um, See, the thing is, Uddhav Thackeray did surprise a lot of people. The way he's handled it and the fact that it looks like the government will stick around for the next 5 years. And
Hmm.
for Shiv Sena, which was in a continuous decline, maybe this will give them an opportunity to revive themselves. And as you know, NDA sort of turned cannibal, where they are either eating their own allies up, or destroying them in such a way that they don't have, nobody stands up to them. First they destroyed the opposition, now they're going after their allies. So I think Uddhav Thackeray has played a good game for his own survival, and the way he's going after. Now the irony is, a lot of people are saying that today we have to rely on Uddhav Thackeray to basically uh, defend secularism. Many people who come from that line of thought are saying,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is a which is a very drastic turnaround, but at the same time expected one in politics. So whatever works for you, you do that. If regionalism works for you, you do that. What if pandering to a particular community does, do that. So basically, I think Uddhav has proved the master, you could say, because a lot of people kept on saying Uddhav is not competent. Maybe Raj Thackeray would have done a great job, this and that. But today,
Yeah.
where is Raj Thackeray? He is not even on the scene as such, and
Seriously.
his party has not been able to make a dent. Like, the only time I think they did something was in 2009, and election before 2009, the assembly election. But after that, where is Raj Thackeray? So I think Uddhav has sustained the party and even taken a plunge out of the comfort zone when it was needed. So I think,
And let me add that Eknath Khadse, who has been
hmm,
with the BJP for 24 years, has
hmm,
recently joined the NCP. I mean, not Shiv Sena
yeah,
obviously, but he's joined the NCP, which is basically kind of coming towards the Mahavikas Aghadi. At the same time, Pankaja Munde, who is a part of
yeah,
BJP and the daughter of I forgot his name. He was supposed to be the chief minister.
even I
Gopinath
forgot.
Munde.
Gopinath
Gopinath Munde.
Munde.
Yeah. So her daughter, who's from the BJP, also was saying good things about Sharad Pawar. And the thing is, a lot of people. Oh, by the way, today's news. I'm sorry. Which is another part which we could have taken is Urmila Matondkar has joined Shiv Sena. She's going to become a spokesperson as well, and she has been selected as a candidate for the Legislative Council
Hmm.
from the upper house.
Okay.
So yeah, that's just another piece of news. I think we
Okay.
summed it up. You would agree?
Yeah, 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 I agree. Let's move on.
Okay. We'll move on to the final beat of the week. That is the interview of the week. That'll be taken up by you, Sailesh, whenever you are ready.
Okay. So the interview of the week. I know there's a lot of international stuff that's happened over this particular podcast, and the interview of the week is also of an international personality.
Hmm.
It's basically taken by the print editor Shekhar Gupta of U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo when he visited India around 2 days ago, and so at that time he took a short interview. It's only 10 minutes long, but then uh, it basically reassures the Indian community that US is not going anywhere. We are there with you, and the title is also aptly written. India shouldn't feel alone or left to fend for itself. Uh, credited to Mike Pompeo. So in the interview, it's predominantly they're talking about China, be it the LAC issue or any other issue that the US is having with them. And Pompeo is directly gone against Xi Jinping. He's saying, I don't have issues with the Chinese or China itself. The issue is with the Communist Chinese Communist Party and its leader, the general, or rather the general secretary, Xi Jinping, because he says it is he who's pushing the policies of the countries because of his position, and he should be the one who's
Let me correct
basically.
you. Let me correct you. I think Pompeo did not say it is he. Pompeo said it is she.
Good one. So,
Thank you.
anyway, so the point is that he blasted China like he's doing everywhere else. No matter where he goes on an assault on China. Literally on every platform that he gets, somehow he ends up talking about China and how Trump is,
Yeah.
standing up to China and all those things. And given the fact that his visit came barely a week, around a week before the US elections, or
Correct.
week before that. Uh, do you like? What do you think of this whole strategic recalibration where we are moving more and more towards US? And as you know, during their visit, the 2+2, the defense minister and the foreign secretary, the visit that happened, or rather, foreign minister, the visit that happened,
I
they started.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know what I think? I think I this the China issue has been affecting everyone.
yeah.
Okay, they've already overtaken America by being the richest country now. They are worth 24 trillion, while America is worth 20 trillion. Obviously,
No,
$20 trillion dollars.
I think America is still the wealthiest nation. Maybe on PPP, China has overtaken. I don't think so. They've
Right. So I
overtaken.
don't know. I don't know on what particular notes it is there, but I read an article, and I could be wrong because I don't understand economics that well. But I feel that they are
It's
getting there.
either saying
They
it.
are, yeah, they are getting there. They're getting there. They are getting a lot of influence. And so it could be political, but I feel that this was anyways a long time coming, and this is going to really shake the ground that China is on, because a lot of the people in this subcontinent who are not allies of China and who are being harassed by China will get that kind of reassurance that they require, especially Taiwan, Japan, Philippines, all these states. Many of the Southeast Asian states also are being affected by China's bullying tactics, and that has been addressed by Mike Pompeo, like you said in the 10-minute video, which I had also seen, and it is reassuring for sure. At the same time, it will definitely help with elections, I feel, but I don't think it is going to affect it that much, because the vote base that is going to vote for Trump is still going to vote for Trump. There is also the case of the taxes, which I've been following, is that Biden's tax policies that have been in the public for the public to see are not very popular. A lot of people have spoken against them, whether it's black, white, whoever. The rich people are saying that this is really, it's crazy. Apparently, it feels like people who earn $400,000 per year, they
Hmm.
have to shell out about 60% for taxes.
Yeah. I mean,
So
overall taxes, including the federal and the state and all kinds of taxes. And there's a funny thing that happened. What 50 Cent did was,
yeah,
when news came out, he spoke against it. He's like, "This is fucking crazy. Go vote for Trump. I know he doesn't like black people, but then this tax plan is so fucking crazy." And on that, one of the commentators, I can't recall her name, what she said was, "Guess 50 Cent doesn't want to be 20 Cent." Then 50 Cent repeated that, and then there was a whole New York Post front page, this thing, front page artwork where 50 Cent is shown, and he's saying, "I don't want to be 20 Cent under Biden tax plan." So I don't know
yeah,
to what extent. Maybe 60% seems a bit unbelievable. So I'm being a bit skeptical. But then one thing I'm really sure about, that Biden is planning to increase taxes, and it is definitely unpopular, and that's what Democrats
So
normally do. Hmm.
let me tell you, just to tell you, because I've been following a lot of these YouTube channels as well as some commentators
Yeah,
who speak about US and US politics a lot,
yeah,
including them Flagrant 2, which includes Andrew Schultz and his group, and he
yeah,
talks to experts who basically can break it down, like how
oh,
Shekhar Gupta has
yeah, yeah.
experts who
Correct.
talk about the economy and all of that. Similarly, like that, but Flagrant 2, so it's a little explicit. So they've confirmed it that it is like that, but they also kind of speak about how the rich people who know how to, evade taxes and who have these NGOs and these trusts will just kind of funnel it into that, and ultimately we end up paying not much. But the people who are
Correct.
paying, who are earning 400,000 pounds and sorry, $400,000, and they don't have these means of trying to save the taxes, will be the real losers. So I feel this is not as popular. So let's see how this goes. If their vote base that earns much less than that would go for this,
Correct.
let's see. Obviously, we've deviated from the interview of the week, but yeah, that's how it is.
So, anyways, so in this particular interview, he talks a lot about how U.S.-India relations have progressed, and he says there's a consistency in U.S.-India relations that has, no matter which administration comes in the US or which administration comes in India, it stays on its own path. And yeah, so basically, he does a lot of China bashing in it. And if you're really
Hmm.
interested, then definitely go and watch. It's a short 10-minute interview, so it won't
Yeah,
take up
you
a
should
lot of
watch it. 10 minutes is nothing. 10 minutes is nothing.
time. Yeah.
Okay, I think on that note, we come to an end of this
Hmm.
particular episode of 100% Sale of Journalism Ethics here. And like always, like it's been the tradition, Sailesh will tell you why it's called 100% Sale of Journalism Ethics here. Sailesh, go ahead.
So it's basically a clickbait, 100% sale of journalism, because a lot of news channels or news organizations that claim to do ethical journalism are actually actually selling out the ethics of journalism. So we thought it would be interesting to name our channel 100% sale of journalism ethics, whereas we are not doing any of we besides rigging our views, we are not actually involved in any ethical sales or anything like that. So I think to sum it up, basically it's clickbait. And if you do like our content, if you do like our podcast, then do like, subscribe, and share. And yeah, that's it. Or maybe comment if there's something you would like to improve or you would
Yes,
see improved in this particular podcast. So I think on
yes.
that note,
I hope Ramesh you like this because you're the one who's listening.
I don't even think he
So
listens. I think he does that TRP thing where he just, puts on the podcast and goes away, and that's how the views are.
yeah, that's good enough, man. It's okay. Then we can just say, fuck you,
I mean, we
Ramesh. Fuck
fucking
you. I
pay
know you're
people
not
to
listening.
do this.
Yeah, I think on that note, Sailesh, should we say goodbye to them?
Yes, yes. Goodbye. See you next week. Have a good week
Yes.
ahead.
Hey, goodbye.
Bye.